Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Deborah Pinkerton. Welcome to this special edition of Morning Light. Refuge, Operation New Arrivals at 50.
Well, the Vietnam War is often remembered for its brutality of fighting and jungle warfare, but amid all the chaos, a humanitarian effort stood out, a rare moment of hope. Operation New Arrivals. We are seeing a great human tragedy unfold as untold numbers flee. This was the passionate warning from President Gerald Ford as American and South Vietnamese forces faced defeat by the communists in 1975. At Mr. Ford's direction, Operation Baby Lift flew some 3,300 children to safety in America. And 50 years ago, this very month, he led the evacuation of some 130,000 refugees from South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. President Ford and First Lady Betty personally welcomed the children at San Francisco International Airport.
And Pennsylvania played a major role in this dramatic rescue story. On May 28, 1975, Fort Indiantown Gap, home to Pennsylvania National Guard's 28th Infantry Division, along with volunteers from local churches, welcomed the first of some 15,000 Vietnamese refugee families. Despite the initial public opposition, Operation New Arrivals rescued thousands of refugees facing almost certain death in Vietnam.
A very, very moving period of time in our history. Well, Long Tran is one of the thousands of largely untold stories from 1975. His escape from Saigon to the Philippines, then Guam, and finally to a military barracks at Fort Indiantown Gap at age 14 is just the beginning of his incredible story, but impossible to understand without his Pennsylvania sponsor family, the Funks of Lebanon, who through their home church, Avon United Methodist, opened their hearts and home to Long and his family today. Long and his wife, Huyen, are the parents of 4 adult daughters, grandparents to 5, with 2 more grandchildren on the way, and this June they will celebrate 40 years of marriage. Long Tran and his wife, Huyen, join us this morning to share his amazing journey from their home in Arlington, Texas. Good morning, Long and Huyen. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Light this morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Jeff.
And thank you for having us.
It's our honor. Let me ask you this. What was your very first memory of the arrival in Pennsylvania? What do you remember about those first days on Pennsylvania and American soil?
Well, sometime in early June of 1975, our airplane is about to land in Pennsylvania. We were very happy excited about it because we have been on the airplane for so long, and finally the airplane arrived to our final destinations. And we heard the pilot, but also our joy is kind of very short because we also heard the pilot said the current temperature outside is very, very cold. And we don't have any warm clothing. So we all kind of nervous and worry about the weather. And so we decided to use the airplane blanket to wrap around ourselves, and we exit the airplane as we carry the blankets. So we get on the bus, and the bus took us maybe about an hour or so to Fort Indiantown Gap. And we get into a building. Then they started processing us, doing paperwork and so on and so on. And, as a 14-year-old boy, I'm curious a lot of things,
Were you scared?
Everything I see.
Were you scared? Were you scared? Were you
scared.
excited, or a combination of all of it?
It is kind of I can say it's combination of all things. But I'm also very curious. I know I'm in a safe place, but I'm really curious. So at the center, at the processing center, I noticed there's some sort of commotion at the entrance doors. By that time, it's kind of a little bit early in the morning, I believe. So I went out and checked to see what's going on. And I realized that that's the first time I saw a very dense fog in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
You see people close by, but not a little bit far away. That too dense to see them. But I also noticed there's a people forming a lines, a long line. And to me, every time you form a line, that means food, But I'm kind of hesitant to get in line because from my warm island experience that at our camp, we saw a food truck parked nearby, and I'm curious to come over to the food trucks, and there was a Vietnamese adult that told me that I can get into that food truck and eat all the food I like to, but do not take the food out, you know. So
Wow.
I did. I then went into the side of the food truck and took out a sandwich and unwrapped them and started to eat them. And I also noticed there are tenants there. He kind of signaled me to come over, and then he uh, put out his hand, looked like he asking for money. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. I have no money. So what happened is that he kicked me out of the food truck.
Oh my.
So based on that
Not a
experience,
great
I'm
opening
kind of,
experience.
yes.
Let me ask
Based on
this.
that,
We have just about a minute and a half left. I want to ask you this. Tell me a little bit about the experience of going and living with an American family, going in American high school, then graduating, and then all the way through engineering school, which is an incredible American story. What was that family like? We have just about a minute.
well, to tell you the truth, we love our American Mr. And Mr. Funk's family. They are very nice to us. They introduced us to the people of the church, and many of them actually later on invite us to their family dinners, and we really uh, enjoy their dinner. Especially we came to we eat at Thanksgiving dinner at their home,
Wow.
and to me, Mr. Funk like a mom to me. She
Wow.
always uh, very kind and very nice to me, and I love her so
Well,
much. And every time we met, I try to hug her. And
I know that they love you back. When I want you to take 20 seconds and just tell us from your perspective, how has your faith been deepened and grown through this whole process of learning to trust God, leaving Vietnam, coming to America, for both of you? Huyen?
For me, well, I believe that God has always been with us and providing us with everything that we need. And every time I'm looking back for a family that I have, with the children, the grandchildren, and the things that we are able to do things now, I always give thanks to God every day for what He has done. And really,
That is a powerful witness to the power of God. And Long and Huyen, thank you so much. God bless you. And we're so glad to hear your story this morning and share it with our Morning Light viewers.
and thank you, Jeff, for having us.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you
for
both.
having us.
Well, we now turn to our Morning Light panel for a deeper dive on this conversation. And you heard Long talk about the Funk family, And Ken, you are here. You were not the mom or the dad, but you were a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
What was that like as a 10-year-old boy, having your table now change? You've got meat and potatoes, Lebanon County here, and you've got Vietnam moving in. What was that like?
Well, Jeff, that's a great question. And there's probably not enough time today to actually talk about all the emotions that we had gone through and the experiences we had. But it was the first time in my life where we've really had an intimate relationship with refugees, people from another part of the world that looked, sounded, and behaved differently than we did. And the fact that they were so appreciative of the time and the energy that my parents had sacrificed for them, it makes me think differently today about people that are different.
Yeah.
Well, your parents certainly answered God's calling
Yeah.
and demonstrated the hands and feet of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Ken, why do you think that this operation was so successful and people have succeeded?
The American people recognized that the Vietnamese people were fleeing communism and they were coming to the United States for freedom. And we loved them for that. We supported the people throughout the war. And then when they were coming here, we recognized there was that mutual search for freedom.
Ken, I'm going to ask you, there always are refugees in central Pennsylvania. We've got Nepalese, Congolese, Sudanese, Moroccan families. What is the challenge to a family today who's looking at this saying, I just don't know if we're ready for this, all these changes about opening your homes, letting them at your table, sleeping in your house. What's the challenge in this generation, 50 years later?
Well, it's scary, right? To bring somebody in that's different.
Yeah.
It is, we are concerned with our time, the time sacrifice, the how much is it going to cost me to entertain and help this family out. But it's incredibly rewarding. And it, I think in some ways it's what God put us here for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I think you have to pray about too, and really ask God for guidance, because it is something that you may not be used to, but ask for guidance on how to deal with this. And for you, it made a difference.
Yeah.
Ken, the story of the American Army working alongside the Salvation Army and Church World Service and Catholic services and then local church congregations is remarkable. And take just 40 seconds or so. Why was this partnership successful? It's a wild partnership, churches and the Army.
Everybody had the same mission, and that's to reintegrate, or to integrate at that time, the Vietnamese people into our society. The Americans knew that these folks, if they went back, they would be persecuted, they would be killed, it would be bad. So there was no doubt we had to help these folks to integrate them into the American society. So it was, from the military side, it was an easy mission.
Yeah. Ken and Ken, thank you both this morning. Ken, to the memory of your family and what they did, thank you very, very much. And thank you, Ken, for your service to our country. Not Vietnam era, but you flew those Apaches and did it well, and thank you for your service.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I was a Cobra driver, but prior to the Apaches.
All right.
The Vietnam era birds.
Indeed. Well, thank you, and we'll hear from you a little bit later in the program.
Okay.
Well, a journey to freedom. Pennsylvania families opened their homes to Vietnamese refugees in 1975. Meet a man who escaped on the last day of evacuations at the tender age of 10. He'll share his harrowing story. That's up next on this special edition of Morning Light.
The story of the fall of Saigon and America's defeat in Vietnam is well documented and debated. But the undisputed bright spot is the evacuation and resettlement of Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Laotian refugees.
And President Gerald Ford, Congress, and the military provided the framework and funding for this massive resettlement effort. But the outcome would have been far different without the support and partnership of sponsor families, local churches, and faith-based nonprofits.
Together, they formed the backbone of Operation New Arrivals, the welcome and resettlement of refugees to America and their assimilation into American life.
So this morning, we look back at this beautiful story of Christian compassion in action. When the silver American Airlines 747 taxied into Harrisburg International Airport carrying 340 Vietnamese refugees, the walk from the stairs to the tarmac in 80-degree May heat marked the end of an exhausting 20-hour direct flight from Guam, a journey to freedom lasting nearly a month. On May 28, 1975, 1,000 Pennsylvanians, led by the governor, welcomed war-shocked families taking first steps onto American soil. They were educated. Many spoke English and French along with Vietnamese. Some lost businesses, others family. Many fought alongside Americans. President Ford was defiant. Even with only 36% of Americans supporting his resettlement plan, opposition was loud. To Ford, this was a moral obligation.
I'm convinced that the vast majority of Americans today want these people to have another opportunity to escape the probability of death. And therefore, I applaud those who feel that way.
Pennsylvania's Fort Indiantown Gap was one of 4 military resettlement hubs requiring massive mobilization of public and private help. Christian charities like the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Church World Service, and a small army of local congregations worked alongside the Pennsylvania National Guard. Major General John Pippy says Pennsylvania was ready for the welcome.
We accepted them and we celebrated them, and we saw the universal connection between individuals, and so it was something real powerful. And I think it is through understanding and knowledge and interaction that you open up the lens in how you see the world. And I think Indiantown Gap is one of those places where we help open that lens. And you know, I have a lot of great people that I work with, and they tell me a lot of the restaurants and a lot of the shops now in Annville that were established, 50 years ago by those refugees, and now they're second generation, third generation to continue. And so it has now become a Pennsylvania story, and we're real proud of it.
The role that the community played, churches, nonprofits, all the volunteers. Talk a little bit about how essential it was not just to do the logistics piece and the feeding, clothing, dining, but then to have that support from the community.
The churches, the Boy Scouts, the different youth groups. What our communities do and what these organizations do is that they help build that comfort level so you can see the potential of an individual. They help them find jobs. They help them with their kids and providing daycare so they can work. And that's just so powerful.
At just 10 years old, Dr. Michael Tran was one of those immigrants who, with his mother, father, and 8 other siblings, narrowly escaped on the last day of evacuations in Saigon, leaving family behind.
We took the ferry from the inner harbor. We float out, there's a little engine, we float out to the middle of the sea where President Ford ordered the evacuation of all Americans and their affiliates and associates. About 3 days, 3 nights. And with open, there's no roof, there was wasn't raining. The engine stopped working, so we kind of float out to the sea, and we got out to the U.S. naval ship, climb up the rope, way up high.
You're 10 years old,
10 years
climbing
old,
up the rope.
of the U.S. naval cruiser, Wow. Like I said, God had taken care of everything, so.
For the Tran family, Fort Indiantown Gap was the first step to reclaiming what they lost. A sponsor family from a local church parish, their guide to the new world. Within just 3 years, they'd opened a successful restaurant in New Cumberland, a far cry from the wealth they left behind, but the first of many family successes in medicine, business, and entrepreneurship. President Ford wrote a letter congratulating the family on the thriving restaurant. It is people such as you who have the courage and determination to make a new life for themselves who have given America her great strength. For Dr. Tran, his journey was nothing short of an act of God's providence.
It's all providence, I believe. There's nothing, it's all God plan for you. It's nothing that's I do.
Wow, he certainly said it best. They were given a second chance.
Second chance. You can look at these stories politically, or you can look at them through the lens of God's providence. And that's the story we're covering today, which is God's hand in all of it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing. Well, coming up next on Morning Light, he was flying his jam-packed helicopter fleeing from the communist forces who were taking over his country.
A former South Vietnamese Air Force pilot shares his harrowing escape and how a prayer of desperation carried him through. We're back in just a minute.
Welcome back. There are many heroes that faced tragedy and triumph during the 1975 evacuation. One of them was a young South Vietnamese helicopter gunship pilot.
Well, after the war, Chieu would re-enlist in the U.S. Army and fly Apache helicopters. I sat down with Chieu and his friend, fellow pilot Ken Stambaugh. You just met him. Both veterans are part of an organization called Liberty Warbirds in Lancaster, a multi-year restoration and demonstration project for a Vietnam-era Huey helicopter. We're grateful for their help in bringing you Chieu's inspiring story. On April 30th, 1975, 24-year-old South Vietnamese Air Force gunship pilot Chieu prayed from the seat of his cockpit.
I did what I used to do every time I get in the cockpit. I say, God, I'm in your hand. you're going to lift us up and take us out. If I'm in the water, it's your fault.
It was a prayer of trust.
I say, I shouldn't be in the water, but I'm going to do what I can now. And everybody's in your hand.
The mission was different. Saigon was collapsing, the nation in chaos. Thousands of South Vietnamese engaged in a desperate search for sea or air evacuation.
Dear listeners, today The Voice of Vietnam is a special program welcoming the brilliant and glorious total liberation of Saigon City.
First we'll hear the news.
The Ho Chi Minh campaign gains total victory.
The order came to surrender to the communists, to lay down arms, including the gunship.
We were ordered to land and turn the aircraft around for the VC when they come in and take it.
His decision was defiant. No surrender.
I discussed with my crew and I say, I don't know about you, but I don't know how to surrender. Nobody taught me how. You know, we never learned it in the academy or basic training. I'm not going to give my aircraft away.
Low on fuel and without military leadership, he took charge, flying to nearby Con Son Island. Fuel and scared refugees were waiting. Evacuation the mission.
But when I started, I couldn't live it up. I couldn't live it up at all. And I look at them, the percentage gauge, it's the torque. I pulled up to 50, it's the limit. I pulled up to 50 and didn't get light on the skid yet. I cannot take off this amount of people.
Even after dumping ammunition and belongings, Chieu's helicopter was still weighed down. None of the nearly 24 refugees willing to leave. So he prayed.
At that time, I was speaking Vietnamese, you know. So I say, God, I don't know if you understand my language, but we are in your hand. I thank him. I thank him right there. I thank God. Now I know that he understood me.
His dramatic landing on the aircraft carrier Midway, the last of a day of miracles.
After 2 hours flight, I got out. We was flying in the rain. Cannot see outside.
See anything?
Can't see anything. It's the rain, and we get out rain, and I saw the whole ocean of the ship. So I say, schoolboy, I see a lot of fish. Pick your fish. I say, the biggest one. I look at the right there. I saw a big one. I say, the biggest one. He say, welcome to USS Midway carrier. You clear to land. And I say, I only get 20 minutes of fuel left. He gave me, you clear to land. You have to go in at 45 degrees, make a traffic pattern, and you know, final, and then but I don't have to do that. He said, just come in and land.
His friend and fellow veteran Ken Stambaugh says his life, an example, is a gift.
The love of freedom is our bond, and that's where it starts. And then when you find out you both flew helicopters, you speak the same language, and the feelings are the same, the emotions are the same. And God has a plan for us. And a lot of times we don't know what that plan is. But you just go through the day trusting in the Lord, and He'll take care of us.
Yes, certainly a miracle. And he said it best, God does have a plan.
He does. And in Chieu's life, it was a series of miracles. That was just the first of many, many in his life, and lessons to learn. And then the humility that both men exude, I think, is exactly what we need in life.
Yeah, he trusted God every step of the way.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We're back right after the break. The scenes from 50 years ago this month, the escape from Vietnam and the incredible welcome from Pennsylvanians seems almost impossible without the help from the people you met on today's program.
And almost a century before, Emma Lazarus, a New Yorker who helped Jewish refugees escape the horrors of Eastern Europe, wrote a poem about the promise of America, almost as if she could see those Vietnamese families running to the boats, climbing into the helicopters, and landing in places like Annville, Pennsylvania. She wrote, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse on your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door."
But it's the words of Jesus more than any poem that ring truest in the events we remember today. "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in." It's the kind of love only the gospel can release.
So thank you for joining us on this special edition of Morning Light in the spirit of 50 years ago, Operation New Arrivals. Go check on your neighbors and keep that welcome light at your house on. We'll see you again very soon.